Hello, everyone. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Anne. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I see we have some folks coming on in.
Fabulous.
Yeah. Hi, Anina. See some already people using the chat. This is great. So as people stream in, we can sort of get started here. This is very exciting. This is our very first community webinar. So just want to do some quick introductions and then we'll get to the fun stuff. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much, Anne. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Rachel Murray. I'm a co-CEO of She Geeks Out, and we run fun, empowering events for women and non-binary folks in tech and beyond. And we also offer corporate training on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we are here presenting What the F is UX with Anne Hjortshoj. And just a little just a little housekeeping before we get started. If anybody has any questions or comments, I'll be monitoring the chat functionality there, so feel free to say hi. And as a little tester, what we can do is, I'm curious to know where everybody's from. I'm hazarding a guess that we've got a lot of Bostonians, but if there are folks from other places, feel free to use the chat functionality to shout out where you're from. And while we do that, just a little bit about Anne. So Anne's the director of UX at CarGurus. It's a global online automotive marketplace. And during her 20-plus year career, she's successful. She started at the age of 10.
Clearly.
She successfully led design in the cybersecurity, online education, financial services, and advertising industries, among others. And she enjoys demystifying design, building and managing teams, and applying product management strategies to UX challenges. So thanks again so much, Anne, for doing this and being our first person. So let's just get right to it. And first things first, the basic question: what the F is UX?
So UX is interesting because it's UX design, user experience design. And really it's the process and methodology, practice of designing experiences for people using software, the web, any kind of system. And the visual part of that is the user interface, which is the screen. And people who aren't UX designers often think that that is the sum total of what a UX designer does. They create pixels and make nice screens that people can interact with to get their jobs done or to buy things or whatever. But really the practice of UX goes a lot beyond that. It's all of the thinking that goes into creating the right experience for the user so that the user can access the entire value of whatever idea it ends up being expressed as a product.
Love it. Thank you for that. And yeah, if people have additional questions like, what did that mean, Anne? Clarify. Feel free to just chime on in. Before we sort of dive into UX, can you talk a little bit about how you got into it?
Sure. I think everyone I know who is sort of my age and has been in the industry for a while kind of got into it the same way, which is they did not go to school for it. So I have an English degree. And I always had an aptitude for design, but design wasn't really a thing that people, that was really, I would say, considered a career that was going to make you any money. A lot of the designers I knew of were doing newspaper layout with literally paper and an X-Acto knife. So I decided that going to school for English would probably be a better career choice in the long run, which is hilarious. So I had an English degree. I graduated into a pretty bad recession. And sort of decided, well, I'm just going to see what's out there. And every job I took had a sort of a design component to it. I ended up as, this is not on my resume, but I ended up as assistant director of career services at New England Conservatory, where I ended up doing a lot of poster design for students who were going to do local gigs. I designed the so-called J cards, which are cards that went into cassettes. ancient history.
Wow. What are cassettes?
Right?
I know what cassettes are.
It's a lossful medium. You play it too many times and you lose the music. So yeah, but so I did a lot of design there, and I was like, oh, I like this. And then I ended up at a company called Media Map, which I was really fortunate to be there at the time because they were moving from, their whole business model was providing contacts for journalists to get story placement in media, like newspapers and magazines and things like that. So we created, we had a research function, created these quarterly reports that were these giant books that required layout. So I did that. I was in charge of print production, and then they said, well, we need an intranet, and you're it. And I said, that's great. I'll do that. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'll do it. And I did it. And it was a really interesting experience. And then I said, I wonder what's going on here. And I have, with this industry, there seems to be growth in it. And I had a bunch of friends who are in the tech industry and said, hey, you should really learn how to do this. And I said, how hard is it? And it turned out that you could open up a browser and see the code for any website. And I said, this is almost too easy. I'm going to learn how to do that. So I ended up leaving Media Map and going to a small consulting firm where I was basically a UI engineer for web stuff, which was not what it is today. It was pretty much just HTML. And then a senior engineering manager said, hey, you seem to be good at this thing where you figure out where everything goes and it makes sense and you have a good design sense. Why don't you go be an information architect here? And I said, oh, and then I led the information architect function. And really the IA job title has sort of fallen by the wayside these days. It's user experience and UX, but it was basically UX.
Yeah.
And then after that, I started, I went through that job for a while, and then the great crash of the early aughts happened and I lost my job, and I decided to be a consultant for various businesses. Ended up I was with some long-term contracts. I was at Fidelity Investments for 3 years as a design lead and worked on all of their account opening and reduced the, I guess the drop-off rate, I guess is what you could call it, reduced the lack of completion of those workflows by 60% across every retail product. Got to know some great people, worked in advertising, worked in for other software companies, various things. Decided I wanted to go into management, which you can't really do as a single person shop, and joined Blue State Digital, became their head of product pretty rapidly because they needed that. And I got to see the product management side of things, which was really cool. I apologize to anyone I inflicted my early product management experience on. I've certainly learned a lot since then, but it was a really wonderful experience. And I recommend that anyone who is interested in moving into UX management really start looking at the product management side of the world, because you can learn a whole lot about how companies function and value and how to get things built. And after that, I went off and worked for a cloud security startup as their head of UX, and we were acquired by Cisco, and I worked for Cisco for a while and then left Cisco, and here I am today.
Damn,
it's a long and winding road.
I love it. Well, so many of these careers are just that. That's kind of why I wanted to ask, because, and we'll get into a little bit more your thoughts around that. But I think that's part of this space is like it's never a straight line.
Yeah.
So so speaking of not a straight line, what do you see as the life of the UX designer? What does that look like?
Oh, wow. So much of UX design has nothing to do with what you see on the screen. I'd say it's 90% communication. And this might be a good opportunity to show my slides.
Yeah, go for it.
Why don't we do that?
I think you have full power, right?
Great. Yes. I'm going to share my screen.
Sorry for those of you on the phone. We will be sending this out so you can always see the video later.
Right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So I like to show this slide when people ask me what UX designers do. Because it really is an iceberg. There's the stuff that shows up on screen where everybody's like, oh, it's a pretty interface. I like it. It's somewhat delightful. I can do my work, and that's delightful. And I get what you do, and that's not what designers really do. Designers are big facilitators. They are also people who are required to influence without authority. Often designers are embedded with a team where they're trying to get the team to see the value of design. I see design as a kind of a planning and risk reduction function. So you can build any interface to satisfy requirements or something the team thinks is a good idea. We think this will work with users. That's a good way to do it, but there's knowledge and research that designers can bring that will get you to an interface that has a higher chance of success. And so this is all of the work that goes into that. So user experience designers do a ton of user research to understand what are customers looking for, are users looking for, what are the pain points and opportunities. They conduct collaborative design sessions with people who aren't designers. So invite other people into the process of design in order to get buy-in, but also to harvest ideas that go beyond just what one designer can come up with. And this is sort of a senior designer function, I think. Use case analysis. What's a use case? Well, as a person, I want to do a thing to get an outcome. Designers end up writing those pretty often. Persona analysis. What kind of people want to use our system and why? What do they want to get out of it? Very close to use case analysis. Usability tests. So I'm going to sit down a number of people in front of the user interface that I have created as a result of all this work, and I'm going to see if it works or not, and I'm going to write test scripts to run them through so that we are asking each user to do the same thing, and then I'm going to compile results to see, hey, what are the changes we might want to make? And then I'm going to do it all over again. So that's usability. Accessibility and inclusion. Interfaces need to be accessible. There's a whole W3C, which is a sort of a governing body or a working group that establishes rules around things like, well, it should be accessible. It should, what does that mean? Well, the colors need to be high contrast. The code needs to be screen reader readable. It needs to be put together in a way where if somebody's using a screen reader, the fonts aren't being shouted before the actual word content, which is a criticism I've seen of, I think, the Twitter app that's currently out there from Twitter, the official Twitter app. You have to put something in a special font. The font will read before every letter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, not good if you're using a screen reader.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so can we technically do this? The designer needs to work with the tech team, the engineers who are actually building this thing to see, is this feasible? Is the thing that I want to build feasible? And can I negotiate with the tech team to get this out the door in a form that is going to be valuable to users? There's a lot of working with the business to share information that has been discovered in the course of design work. Hey, we found out a thing, I need to socialize this. And also, just making sure that design is leading to business results. There's a lot of user pain out there. Some of it is user pain that contributes to great, when you solve it, it creates a big bump for the business. And some of it is probably lower priority and really understanding the difference there. And how does the analysis of user pain work into gains for the business?
Yeah, it's so interesting because I can see how somebody who's doing product management there's a lot of overlap for sure.
There's a huge amount of overlap, and that's a big topic right now. It's that product managers and designers care essentially about the same set of things, but they see it from two different perspectives, and they're working towards two different goals. Product managers want to make the company the most money possible, and user experience designers want to solve problems and pain points for users. But they sort of work it out through the same medium. So it's really important for designers to be very good at kind of brokering relationships in order to advance. A lot of this doesn't apply to, say, entry-level design. So if you're listening to this and going, oh, that seems like a lot, I mean, you pick that up in terms of, in the course of being exposed to a business.
Right.
But, design is not just being a pair of hands. It's not just being good at interaction design. It's being able to have foster relationships with different roles in the company so that design can happen,
right.
Which may be more of a management thing. But I think all designers are exposed to kind of bits of this in their early careers, maybe more so than engineers, because engineers are also craftspeople, but designers have a tendency to be exposed to a lot of sort of upper level business reactions more than engineers are.
Well, yeah, and I mean, ultimately, you can make the argument that, if your users aren't happy, you're not going to really have any business.
Right,
so.
Right, exactly.
They're so tied in.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you. Did you have another slide?
Oh, no, that's it.
perfect. I'm going to move on to the next question. So this is actually a really funny question considering your long and winding path, but do you think there's a recommended way to get into it for someone who hasn't done much?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of options these days. I think if I were starting over, I'd probably go, if I were undergrad in college, I'd probably, if I knew I was interested in design and I knew that there was an industry that supported that interest where I could potentially make some money at it, I would have gone somewhere where I could have done some undergrad design courses and then probably tried to get an entry-level job or a paid internship doing that thing, either during the summers or right after college. That's probably the best way. And I say that, I mean, there's a lot of designers I've worked with who just go straight design in college, and that's great if you know that's what you want to do. I'm not sure we're speaking to those people right now.
Right.
So if you're listening to this and going, well, I have an undergrad degree in something else, what do I do? There are a lot of design boot camps out there. There are online courses that are cheap or free in how to do UX design. I don't have a particular liking for any of, I mean, like or dislike of any of those. I think that it just, it depends on what you can afford and kind of the time commitment that you're able to give. Some of these boot camps are full time and that can be a burden.
Yeah.
I've hired designers who have self-trained online.
Oh, wow.
With free courses, and it's great. I think there's a lot, it's if you have an aptitude and you have a work ethic, those things are great. And it's also about, you know, doing the work. So I would say that probably the hardest thing is getting that first design job if you're in that situation. So some of it is being willing to do an internship or partner with a company or shadow or something. A lot of these boot camps will have you do sort of pseudo product projects or will pair you up with a company, which I like. But there's really not one way.
Right.
I think the important thing is to understand if you have the capacity to have good visual taste to do that level of design work. There's also another way in, which is research, UX research. And there's programs for that if you're not a designer, but you want to be in design. Bentley,
Bentley, right.
Boston. Yeah.
I did it for one semester.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a heavy program. I think
it's a heavy program.
Yeah. But, you know, research is a lot. There's a lot of ways into UX research too. I mean, there's the classic marketing research way, which is great because you get a lot of on the ground experience with a highly quantitative research. And marketing research is a really great path into UX research because UX research, I think the nature of it sometimes is that it's quite reactive and it's sort of lean. It's very scaled down to support whatever design work you're working on, which means you're probably not going out and running focus groups or doing any of the other classic research methodologies. It's very much like geared to the single project that you're on. And I think it can be really great to get into research through a marketing research background. I work with several researchers who came into UX research that way. And I find that the process is really great. It travels well. So that's a really good thing to do. There's lots of ways to get into that.
I have a follow-up question related. So you talked about design and research. So with UX, there's sort of these two different components to it. So if I were someone that wanted to get into UX, are there like split opportunities for people to say like maybe people who are more creative and aren't really interested in the research part, or maybe people who like literally do not have the ability to like design anything but are really interested in user experience? Are there separate paths that way?
Yeah, I think so. I think the non-designers can go into research exclusively. I don't think UX design supports not doing research. So there is a research component to being a UX designer. If you're not validating with users, you're probably just doing graphic design.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which is also, by the way, a reasonable entry point. You can get trained as a graphic designer and then switch over to UX if you have a visual design bent. And there's a huge need for people with solid graphic design backgrounds. It's just a slightly different medium than what people who train for graphic design typically work in.
Yeah.
So it's really getting to know the business part of that and the UX specific bits of that and making that shift, but there's so many ways into UX.
That makes a ton of sense.
Tons of people who came in from music.
Huh.
Yeah, people who went to Berkeley.
Really?
In Boston. Yeah, because musicians have a tendency to see they see the unifying thread in a lot of granularity. And they're very good at thinking, at maintaining a vision, but also understanding all of the little bits and pieces.
That makes a ton of sense. And so if I were someone that was like working at CarGurus or some other company, and I was like in the design team, or I was in a different team, and I was like, but I really kind of want to do UX. Like, are there opportunities for, you know, mid-size, larger size, even small size, well, probably especially small size companies for employees, do you think, to like switch in? I guess it's company by company, but
yeah.
Your thoughts?
I mean, I know that there are apprenticeship programs at some companies. We do not have one here because the UX group here is pretty early, and we don't really have the admin support for it or the overhead to manage that. I think there's a big training component that people need to make sure that they get. Yeah. I would, if I were to do that here, just thinking about it, I would probably want to get some external training paid for. Yeah. Just because I feel like kind of having a rigorous framework like that is really beneficial, and a mid to large size company should be able to pay for some form of training. Yeah. I've certainly sent designers to training as an ongoing thing. There's a really great program or workshop style training at Cooper, Alan Cooper. I think he actually is no longer associated with it, but the Cooper does a great design leadership course that I send people to. I think we have a question.
I know, it's a great one. Yeah, feel free. You can read it.
UX writing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. This is a good topic. So UX writing. Yeah, so there is a specific practice of UX writing. And actually there's a book by O'Reilly that I think came out today that I had to buy on the topic.
How timely.
I know, right? And it's a big topic right now, actually, because copywriting and marketing writing is not the same thing as UX writing. UX writing is very action-oriented, and it takes slightly tactical. So if there's a voice and tone for the overall communications of a given company, you'll want to reflect that in how you write help text and write instructional text and supporting text in an interface. I'd say if you want to get into UX writing, probably the thing to do is to really understand your current background. I don't think you really need a design angle. I think you need to educate yourself about what UX writing actually means.
Yeah, I actually don't know what that means really. Yeah. Like, yeah, trying to visualize. I'm trying to think of like the submit button. Is it like what the submit button actually says?
Well, it's that. It's micro copy. So what's a good example? So let's say that you are filling out a form on Etsy. I'm going to use Etsy because Etsy has a really strong voice and tone. I don't even know if they have UX writers, but I'm assuming that they have at least some specialty writers. And so there's a paragraph talking about why you want to do this, why you want to fill out the form. Hey, you want to make sure you have this and this before you start. It's in a nice, friendly tone of voice. There might be some consideration about sending people elsewhere for FAQs and whatever, and how do we position that in terms of within the copy. Then we have form field labels where we want to make sure it's very clear and that expectations are set before they hit the submit button, which is probably not going to be labeled submit. It might be labeled go because Etsy's very casual. Yes. And that kind of thing. And also it's just sort of a strategy around voice and tone specifically for a given site or function. And making sure that if people are making copy decisions without the UX writer, that there's some sort of framework to make those decisions within.
Great. Thank you.
Let's see.
Someone else gave another example.
Right. Yep. So that's a great example. That 3-digit code on the back of a credit card. Yeah. The other thing, another example of that is helping people find a routing number on a check, which maybe isn't such a thing anymore now that everybody does online banking, but that was a common thing.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. So I want to just ask, we sort of touched on this a bunch, but what's a UX design career path? What does that look like? So someone's sounds like there's a lot of options. What is the path to growth?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's sort of like any other career in a way. You have an entry level person. Person gets more senior as someone who is a so-called individual contributor, somebody who just does the work, they don't manage. Then they can get more and more senior. Much like engineering, there's a choice to be made. Do I become a manager or do I become a senior individual contributor? I think for UX specifically, it's a little bit more complicated because I think that you can go really far as a lead designer, kind of creative, almost creative director, although I wouldn't use that term for UX. That's slightly different in terms of function. Creative director is really more of an ad industry term or a marketing term, very brand oriented. But more of somebody who can really make the design happen. That is like a principal designer, somebody like that. So you'd want to get really good at making the politics work, understanding how to get designs done on the sort of functional team level, working with other people, being able to think very strategically in terms of vision for a particular part of an application, a feature, maybe a product, that kind of thing. So you get to a point where you're sort of managing, but you're managing functionally, you're not managing reports. Then there's the other side of that. And becoming a manager is really a completely new and different career than being a designer. For design, you want to have management that understands design and has credibility and can speak to the elements of design, understands all the tools and when they should be applied, and can mentor individual contributor designers at various levels. But really the job of a manager, director, VP, et cetera, is to remove obstacles for the team, make sure the team is growing appropriately, take care of hiring, make sure that people are working as their best selves, bringing what they need to bring to the organization, that people are working productively, that the technologies that they need to do their job are in place, and all that other stuff, which is really what I do, as well as mentoring my team in design.
Sorry, continue, please.
Yep. And then, there are aspects of that. So it's not just the manager, not manager stuff. There are things like design operations, which is a new practice, which means that it's someone who specializes in making the machine of design go. So design systems, managing design systems, how are engineers using them? How are designers using them? What do we need to do to grow that? That's a strategic capability. Running research, running other things, other parts of design. It can grow immensely. People can specialize as the organization grows bigger. So it's not just designing or not designing. It's researching, doing tactical stuff within the org to make design happen, running design ops, running other things. There's a lot out there.
I had no idea design ops. That sounds really fun. I'm about that stuff.
Yeah.
Is there also, do you think there's a lot of opportunity in the consulting space as well?
Yeah. Consulting is a thing. It's a great path in, actually, to design, because I think the bar to entry tends to be pretty, not low, but a little bit easier to get into than a product company. You get a lot of exposure and a lot of training at consulting firms. And I think the culture of a consulting firm tends to be classically, we're going to hire a lot of smart young people and train them in the way that we do business. And then they're going to go out and be an extension of our philosophy and create value for our clients.
Nice.
Which is a nice place for a designer to be, because you get exposed to a lot of different places, a lot of different corporate cultures, and you're asked to do a lot of different kinds of work, and you have to think on your feet a lot. Yeah. The downside of consulting firms is that they're sometimes can be geared to people who don't have families, who don't have to be home for their kids. They ask crazy hours. When I worked for a consulting firm, I'd be up at 2 or 3 in the morning doing wireframes. I think that also speaks to poor deadlines being set, which is also sometimes a thing at consulting firms, but you need to balance it. I think it can be a great opportunity. For me, it wasn't a lifelong career path. I just didn't like some of the cultural aspects, but I got a ton out of working there, for sure. That was my step into the industry.
Yeah, thank you. All right, switching gears a little bit, I would love to know what your thoughts are about thinking about UX design from the standpoint of inclusion. I think there's a lot more conversation around that. Do you have any thoughts?
Well, let's see. I mean, I think the accessibility thing is big. You just really do need to be accessible. So that is partly inclusion. I think that as companies become more aware of diversity and inclusion efforts generally, that also comes into design. Things like pronoun usage, research becomes hugely important. We are not our users. What does that mean? Well, let's go ask research. Like, let's find out what people need, and try to be open and ethical about how we design things. Do
you think there's an effort to bring on more diverse experiences and people from different backgrounds and into the team so that can sort of be baked in?
Yes, and I see that across companies right now. I wouldn't say that that's unique to design at all. A good business is diverse business, because the more perspectives you bake into business, the better the outcome will be. Diverse perspectives are better.
But it is great that you're able to, I mean, part of the work that you do is actually the research, the user research. So
and I think there's been some huge misses on inclusion. I mean, the famous one is Apple's health app, where they didn't really talk about what women's needs were in terms of tracking their periods. I said the word period on a webinar. But really, I mean, like,
I'll say period too. There, we both said it.
Right? So, and that was a big miss. Really huge miss. Like, how did you do that? That's women's health.
Right.
And that comes up over and over again. So the effects can range from embarrassing to not great for your business.
To potentially life altering.
And little things like building safety into ride-sharing apps. Because not everyone is confident that it's a safe experience. And guess what? Women suffer from the bad effects of those bad experiences more often than men do. Those are the ones that come to mind for me. Obviously, I'm a white lady, so I'm sure there's stuff I'm missing too. So I need to be conscious of that.
There's a lot. So what do you think are some of the key aspects of being successful in this field?
I think resilience. I think a frequent challenge for designers is that because what they are creating is the first instantiation of a particular business direction, they can walk into a meeting and be on the receiving end of a lot of pointed feedback from people who are so far above their pay range that's intimidating. And it's just part of the job. And your manager needs to help you learn how to deal with that. And that's been a thing every place I've ever worked as a designer. And it's not particular to one culture. It's just sort of the hazard of design. Engineers don't have to deal with this. They're the other craftspeople. They don't have to deal with this. Their work is understood to be hard, complex. Hey, they're creating a thing. They get critiqued when they're done. They get critiqued for missing deadlines. That's a whole other thing. But it's a little different for designers. Their work comes earlier in the process. And I think there's also a perception that, hey, I can do this. My nephew does design. Why don't we do it this way? Learning to handle the critique where it becomes about, why don't you make that pixel blue? Versus mapping it back to the framework of business requirements that we're trying to satisfy, really turning design, representing design from, hey, let's make things pretty, to, hey, let's satisfy these business requirements, and being able to frame the discussion that way. It's a strategic take on feedback that I think a lot of young designers have trouble with. Because it's hard. It's really hard. And so getting that exposure early in your career and seeking out managers who will do that for you is really important. I think people who come from classic design backgrounds have a better experience with this. For example, I worked with a guy at the consulting firm who's head of design at a very, very large successful company now, who came out of Carnegie Mellon's architecture program. And I've never seen anyone take a critique as well as he did. And I talked to him about it, and he said, yeah, because I was beaten on a daily basis by my professors.
Man.
Which is a terrible thing to say. But, you know, I think the classical design training actually helps you a lot with that.
Yeah. So yeah, having real tolerance for critique sounds hard.
Yeah.
But again, everybody has an opinion. So,
and it can be a lot at first. And you need to be in an organization that will kind of put you into that process gently, with a lot of backup, and with people who are concerned about these things and helping you navigate them.
Yeah, right on.
Mm-hmm.
So final question, and I'm going to open it up to folks on the chat. What do you see for the future of UX?
I feel
tiny
like
question, a tiny question.
I see great things for the future of UX. I think there's a classic thing that designers talk about, having a seat at the table, which means that they get to sit with the adults and be involved in the business decisions. And I think that is pretty much the case at a lot of companies right now. I think it gets easier as people as senior design leaders link outcomes to business outcomes, design outcomes to business outcomes, and then it becomes just another part of the business. I feel like the advent of phone apps has helped a lot with that discussion. So everyone's got a little app that they use for this or that, and opinions on whether it's a good experience or not. And suddenly it becomes very clear what the value of design is.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to continue growing. I see departments getting bigger and bigger around me. I see suddenly there's a rash of design VPs where that title was never in the mix before. And even at the C-level design, kind of being along with the other executives. So it's funny because you never need many designers as you do engineers. So historically, these departments have been quite small. They're not small anymore. Yeah, there's budgets.
That's great. I mean, that's exciting.
Yeah. I think it's also a great career to go into on the way to doing other things too, because you get exposure to all parts of the business.
Oh, interesting. That's great. Thank you. This was really helpful, I think. Would love to see if anybody on the chat would like to ask any questions, if I've missed anything. And I don't know if I've missed anything that you wanted to share, folks.
I have a question from Yanina in Q&A. She says, not a designer. Loving this raw honesty, good humor, and badassery. Thank you. What advice would you have for women in their 30s in general, career or otherwise? Ooh, that's a good one. I think just know that nobody really knows what they're doing at the executive level to a certain point. Everybody's making it up as they go along. People are just using their best judgment. One of the things that people need to get really comfortable with as they advance is dealing with ambiguity. And it just compounds, that ambiguity just compounds as you move along in your career, and especially as a manager. I think less so as an individual contributor. But if you're going to go into design management, or if you're in a management position period, which a lot of people in their 30s are sort of there, don't get scared by the fact that you don't know what you're doing all the time. Nobody expects you to do that. It's really how you roll with it and the relationships that you foster with people in different roles. Find your allies and use them, whether it's at your job or outside your job. And get to know other women. One of the things that has really helped me in the last few years is reaching out to a community of like-minded women design leaders at other companies in Boston. So these are ostensibly my rivals as far as like hiring designers and getting jobs and moving up, because Boston's pretty tiny in some ways in the tech field. And they're amazing and they're super helpful, and everybody has the same problems. And honestly, beyond women, I've also formed relationships with guys in senior design roles, and everybody's got the same sort of floating anxiety about, are they doing the right things? Are they taking great care of their people? Oh my God, am I missing out on this new trend? What does it mean that upper management is talking like X, Y, and Z about design? How can I anticipate that? So these are sort of like not entry-level design things to talk about, but I think it kind of travels to any career or any level. You have to make friends. I think especially in Boston, because, and maybe all cities are small towns in a way, but the way that my career has really advanced is keeping in touch with people from old jobs and getting intel on various places and getting introduced to people. Form a network, and that does not mean showing up at a random tech event. She Geeks Out is not like that. She Geeks Out is great. At a random tech event and standing around with a drink and a name tag and hoping that somebody talks to you. Like, really work your existing connections. You never know when people are going to be helpful, or when you can help other people, and be really generous with your time too. I'll talk to mostly anyone about design.
Yeah, and I have to say, you were so sweet, because I think I had talked with you at the CarGurus event after you had said a few words, and I was like, Anne, we're doing this thing, we want to start it. Like, I literally said like 3 words, and you were like, yes. It was so generous of your time to share your thoughts.
I mean, it's so easy for me to do, so why not?
Yeah.
And I feel like I think Boston especially can be really siloed.
Yeah.
Because New Englanders don't tend to talk to each other until they're really sure of each other.
Yeah.
Because we're all from little villages in New England, I guess. I don't know why. But
I blame the weather.
Yeah, the weather, or just generally the culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's really quite eye-opening to see what happens when you're just sort of open.
Yeah. We have 2 questions. We have one in the chat and one in the Q&A. Maybe we'll do the Q&A first. I'm a designer and I'm having a hard time finding a job. I'm 40. I know I still have a lot to offer. Do you think UX UI will be a good option for me?
I think so. I mean, you have to work. It's unfortunate. There's a lot of ageism. And I think with design, the whole stereotype of a designer is young, for worse, honestly. So I'd say get to know, work your network. I think there's tons of need for people with a UX UI background. I don't know if UX UI means UI engineer with some visual design chops. If you have that, you're a unicorn. You should not have a problem getting a job. Like, ideally. There's plenty of little startups looking for people like you. I don't know if they're looking to pay a lot. That's the only problem. It's hard. I think there's also a lot of competition for roles, honestly. So keep applying, though, and work your network, and really take a hard look at what your skills and background are and see which companies are a match for that. It can take a long time to get a job, period.
Yeah. Thank you.
I hope that helps.
Yeah. And then we've got a question. Any tips for helping a non-UX person collaborate with the UX team? How do I pitch to my manager that it's in our best interest to work together more frequently and more in depth?
Great question. So I think that goes back to the business value of design, which honestly, sometimes designers have a hard time articulating, because it's sort of feels like it's a little bit distant from their day-to-day in terms of just churning out design work. But design is as I said before, a risk reduction and planning function. So your work will be better. Business outcomes will be better if you involve design. I think also sometimes there's a sense that, if we get a designer involved, it's just going to take forever because it's a planning function, right? Which seems inherently waterfall. It doesn't have to be. It can just be, I'm going to work with this person who specializes in solving things from the user's perspective so that we can spend less time on a thing and have fewer false starts. So there's lots of ways to work that conversation. I would start by asking the UX team how they could contribute, and then form a direction for that conversation with your manager that way. Because I'm sure the UX team has all kinds of ideas about how they can help.
Yeah, thank you. We got another question. Currently a front-end engineer right now, wants to possibly switch over to UX. Would engineers make good UX designers?
I think so. I mean, it's hard to give a universal yes, because it really depends on the person and the company. I think that the difference between UI engineering and UX design is that UX engineering involves keeping up with all of the innovations in front-end code. So there's like React and JavaScript and all these things, and the flavor of the month is coming in 2 months for, for the stack that we're going to use in our, anyway. So there's a lot of kind of like running in place that UI engineers do when it comes to keeping up with technology, which is why it's an engineering specialty. And huge focus on building the right things, but less so with a base of research and kind of deep customer understanding. It's more like building the front end.
Yeah.
And that's not a put down to UI engineers. I love working with great UI engineers. In fact, I work with a woman here who's kind of a unicorn that way. She's a wonderful UX person and a wonderful UI engineer. So it can definitely happen. So I would say that you just need to talk to people you know who are in UX, see if you can get some training, do some reading. It's a matter of self-education on the stuff that you don't have in your back pocket right now, which is probably research.
Thank you. And we got another question, from Camilla. And I'm sorry if I did not get your pronounced name right. Any tips on how to find a UX mentor?
So there's this great organization in Boston called Ladies That UX, and I would go there and just ask around.
So just Google Ladies That UX.
Ladies That UX, LTUX Boston.
Yeah.
Is one. If you're not in Boston, then I would say look at your local UX groups and see if you can meet people that way. It's always kind of an awkward conversation when a random person interested in UX approaches senior UX person who doesn't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
And says, hey, you want to be my mentor? And there's no relationship there.
Right.
So it's sort of a question of finding the person who you want to emulate and finding out if they have time for you or can recommend someone who has time for you. And it's better to have that conversation in person.
Yeah.
At an event.
Yeah, I could imagine if you go to an event, even if it's like, let's say it's really great panel of senior folks, like you can watch them and learn from them there. But then when you're having the conversations with people who are maybe more junior, but also still in UX, probably that could be helpful. And I joke that I have my own personal list of mentors that have no idea that they are my mentors. I stole that idea from Brene Brown, but it's basically and Brene Brown is one of them. And
amazing.
Oprah, and so I have people.
There's also this idea of a personal board of directors that I really like.
Yes.
And that is something I have, where I have a bunch of, they're friends. They're not people who are super senior to me, but they're people whose judgment I trust.
Yeah.
And they aren't even all designers. I know people who are SREs at big companies, who run platform at big companies, but have great business sense.
Yeah.
And who understand how to deal with corporate politics.
Right.
I have women friends who are they're kind of my counterparts. They're design leaders. I have product managers I've worked with. And I can reach out to them and say, hey, how does this idea smell, or this approach? What do you think? When I completed my recent job search, I was actively reaching out to people and saying, what do you think? Does it sound right? What do you know? What's your intel on this company?
Right.
Various places I interviewed. So I like that approach. It's a little bit less, will you be my mentor? And more like, hey, we have a relationship. Let's build this brain trust and leverage it. I totally understand why people want mentors, though. And I think it's great if you have the time as a senior person to give that. I think that your suggestion that younger people or people who are less experienced can also be great mentors from someone trying to break into UX is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad I could contribute. Are there any other questions? There may not be. I don't see any other ones coming in. So any final thoughts from you, Anne, before we say goodbye?
Oh, no. I really enjoyed this. Thanks so much for giving me the opportunity. Glad people are getting some value out of it. If anyone who wants to get into UX, it's totally worth considering. It's a wonderful career because it's a nice combination of steady paycheck and ability to be creative. And as far as corporate jobs go, UX is the most fun.
Yeah.
It is the most fun. You're going to have the best time. The people are the most interesting, I think. And it's a lot of fun. I'm very lucky to have sort of fallen into it. And
yeah.
enjoy it.
Oh, that's great. And I know we have one quick question about what do you think of of paid programs like General Assembly for career change? And I think, Anne, you had touched on that before when you were talking about how to get into it.
I think that it depends. I think that General Assembly is fairly expensive. So you should really figure out if you have an aptitude for this before you sign up for a really expensive program that you may not get a job at the end of. Right. So I would suggest doing some free stuff online. I can't remember the name of the program that my designer did, but if you Google around, you can find some stuff.
Yeah, I love Coursera.
Yeah.
And edX. I should actually mention edX because they're one of our sponsors.
edX is great.
Yeah, they're wonderful and they're local. Thank you.
Yeah. So I wouldn't spend a huge amount of money before figuring out if it's really what you want to do or if it's what you're good at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Oh my goodness. There's another. Oh, yes, we can do this again to anonymous attendee. Thank you so much, everyone. So we are going to make this this webinar accessible after the fact. So you can go back, you can share it. And we will be doing more webinars. So your feedback is always welcome and encouraged. And so, yeah, thank you, everyone. Thanks so much, Anne. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, same.
Right.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.